Got it now.
Okay. All right. It is now 7:33 p.m. So let's go ahead and get started with the opening script. Good evening, fellow commissioners, general public, and distinguished guests. My name is Mike Champness. I'm the chair of the Transportation Advisory Commission. Before we begin, please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the county website and on YouTube. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by the new state legislation FOIA, the Transportation Advisory Commission needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It is a bit cumbersome, so I ask you in advance for your patience. First, because each member of this commission is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for all of the other members. Ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues. I'm asking that each commission member participating in this meeting to state your name and the location from which you are participating when I mention your name. At large, Linda Sperling.
I am present and participating from my home in Clifton, Virginia.
Fantastic. Braddock District, Kevin Morse.
Present from Burke, Virginia.
Greenville District, I am here. Mike Champness. Hunter Mill District, Kelly Westenhoff. Okay. She says she might not be able to join us this evening. Next, Mason District, Roger Hoskin. Roger, I see you there.
Roger looks like he's trying to call in that he's having an issue.
Yeah, it does look that way, doesn't it? Okay, well, let's come.
Hey, Roger.
I don't hear a thing.
Well, we hear you now. Can you hear us?
Everybody talking, but I hear nothing.
He's talking to Calvin.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Let's move forward then. Mount Vernon District, Commissioner Sitnick.
Pete Sitnick,
Okay.
I'm from my residence in the Mount
All
Vernon
right.
District.
Okay, fantastic. Lee District, Alexis Glenn.
I'm here in Alexandria, Virginia.
Thank you very much. Providence District, Jeremy Hancock.
Jeremy Hancock in Falls Church.
Thank you. Springfield District, Eric Thiel.
Here in Fairfax Station.
Thank you very much. Sully District, M. David Skiles. Okay. And Fairfax Area Disability Services Board and our Vice Chair, Mary Pauline Jones.
Here from my home in the town of Herndon.
Okay, fantastic. Let's go back to Roger. Can you hear us now, Roger? Communications check?
Not yet.
We can see him, but we can't talk to him yet. So we'll have to get him connected there. Okay. At this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to Vice Chair Jones so that I may be heard to make the requisite motions.
Thank you. I accept the virtual gavel. I now recognize Commissioner Champness.
Thank you. I move that we have determined that each member's voice, other than Roger's, can be adequately heard by each other member of the commission. I so moved.
You have heard the motion. Is there a second?
Hello,
I'll second that.
Alvin.
It has been seconded by Commissioner Sitnick. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Any abstention? Mr. Chairman, the motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you very much.
I hear nothing. I
Okay.
see everybody. I see 4 people, but
Roger, if you could.
I'm not muted, but I can't hear anybody speak.
We're going to ask you to mute yourself if you can hear us.
Well, that's all that matters, I guess.
Calvin, for now, ask Roger to mute himself, please, while we figure this out.
Yeah, I know when I was using Zoom, I'd have to go in there and sometimes select a different
Calvin, please.
audio device. But this doesn't
I
allow me
next
to do
move
that.
that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for the commission to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting. I further move that this commission may conduct this meeting electronically through a dedicated audio conferencing line, and that the public may access this meeting by the Microsoft Teams online platform, or by calling 1-571-429-5982 and entering the phone conference ID 669-169. Phone number for ADA is 711. Access information is also available on the TAC website. It is so moved.
there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Eric. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstention? Mr. Chairman, the motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. Finally, move that all the matters on the agenda previously furnished and posted on the TAC website are necessary for continuity in Fairfax County government and/or are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations in the discharge of the Commission's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities.
You have heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jeremy. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstention? Mr. Chairman, the motion is carried unanimously. I now give back the virtual gavel.
Thank you very much. We'll now start the tax business per the approved agenda. Now, quick diversion. Roger, can you hear us yet? Roger, what you might want to do is listen on your phone, and then you can coordinate that with your screen, because we can see you and I know you can see us. Okay. Next is Chair's remarks. This is a very important
Roger,
meeting.
can you hear us? Sorry to interrupt, Mike.
Sure.
Roger just logged out and came back in. Oh, maybe that didn't work. Okay, sorry. Continue.
Okay. All right. It's a very timely meeting here. I want to welcome a number of guests. Normally we don't have too many. We have a number of distinguished guests with us here this evening. I'm going to ask each of the members of the transportation aides and chiefs of staff, whoever there is here from our board of supervisors members, to please identify themselves so we can welcome you here and to our conversation. Before we get started. So with that, I would like to open the floor to introductions from the members, the staff members from the members of the Board of Supervisors. I think I saw one face flash across my screen. I saw Shamali. I don't know if you're there. If you could start us off, please, and then folks just kind of introduce themselves. We'll be very much in your debt. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shamali Health, and I'm from my home here in Ruston. I serve on Supervisor Walter Alcorn's staff.
Okay. Anybody else? I know there's a few others.
Good evening. This is Marcus Wadsworth, transportation aide for Chairman Jeff McKay. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Good evening. This is Clara Pisania calling from the Mason District Governmental Center, and I work for Supervisor Penny Gross.
Okay. Fantastic. Next.
Hi there. This is Peyton Oggs from Supervisor Harity's office, checking in from her home in Fairfax.
Hello, this is Sally Kadalev with Supervisor Walkinshaw in the Braddock District, calling from Alexandria, my home.
Fantastic.
And this is Frank. I'm also with Supervisor Walkinshaw's office, but Sally is our transportation expert, so she's got us taken care of. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us. Okay.
Hey, this is Peyton Smith calling in from Supervisor Stork's office in Mount Vernon District.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you joining us. Others, perhaps?
This is Patricia Leslie calling in from Supervisor Palchik's Providence District, and I would like to announce that Supervisor Palchik had a baby girl yesterday.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Oh, right. Good news. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Any of the other transportation aides, chief of staff with us this evening? Okay. Well, thank you very much. I know we've got at least Calvin from the FCDOT here this evening. Calvin, thanks for being with us as always. Normally I can look on the screen and see who else is here, but are there any other folks from FCDOT here with us this evening?
Yeah, hi, Brent Riddle, Fairfax County Department of Transportation here.
Welcome, Brent.
Thank you.
Hello, Chris Wells, Fairfax County Department of Transportation.
Welcome, Chris. Thank you for coming. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate you joining us. Looking forward to the conversation here this evening, and you having. Looking forward to the conversation here this evening. Okay. Now moving on to the acceptance of the previous meeting's minutes. Did just make some edits to the December meeting minutes just a couple minutes before 7:30. Don't know if folks had a chance to have a look at that. Are there any comments or questions on the minutes? I'm certainly open to a motion to approve them, and then we can certainly discuss them then if the commission would like.
I move to accept the minutes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion on the floor and seconded to accept the meeting minutes as modified by the chair. Are there any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes from December 14th as modified by the chairs, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. All right, the motion, the minutes are approved unanimously. Okay. Well, again, glad for everybody to be here this evening. What I'd like to do is dive into the discussion of the TAC work plan. We were very fortunate. Oh gosh, it's been over a year now before the pandemic, when we were able to sit down with, and it was actually sitting down back then, with many of you or your predecessors from the Board of Supervisors office. It was nice to get a chance to compare notes on some of the priorities, and we look forward to doing it again. We've been meaning to do this for a while, but we felt that as we are preparing our work plan for presentation to the Transportation Committee of the Board of Supervisors, this would be a good time to solicit your views, engage in conversation, reconnect with you. We obviously can't have a deep discussion about a lot of topics. I think that the work plan here, I think, will show you some of the things that the TAC has been looking at and has been looking at for the past year or so. So certainly we welcome your comments, both, of course, at the strategic level, some of the kind of things, some of the things we're looking at here, but also some of the details, perhaps. We've got outreach activities, outreach groups, and things like that. So we're trying to do something that is actionable. That's something we've talked about quite often there. As I say all of this, one thing I do want to do is give each of you an opportunity after we've talked about the work plan to raise particular items of interest if you have them. We hope the meeting doesn't go too late into the evening. We keep trying to finish by 9:30 and it keeps going later, so we'll try again. We'll see how it goes. But certainly if there are areas of interest that you have that we're not able to get into in much detail, you're certainly welcome to come back. Those are great. They become great suggestions for topic areas for us to look at in future meetings. Calvin, if you could you put up the work plan, the draft work plan version 6, please? I think hopefully everybody has a copy of this, but give me a second, please. Sure. Okay. But just as Calvin is getting it set up there, what we've done and the structure has been pretty similar here for the year or so we've been working on it. We may turn this into a written document. It may end up being that this structure here might be the most effective. In fact, that's certainly, if anybody is using that, we'd welcome them. We start off with some guiding principles, things we want to keep in mind as we look at what to do this year. We want to apply a holistic approach so that we're not just looking at individual pieces. We're trying to look more broadly. We're trying to look at how things differ by different magisterial districts, across demographics, across transportation users. There's economic development strategies. We saw that very clearly when we're doing some stuff about the Dulles metro extension. There's a heavy component, as you might expect, of economic development opportunities that come from that, and there's an economic development strategy that underlied it. So we want to, look at that as we look at sort of these bigger transportation issues as well. With COVID, a lot of things have changed, so we're trying to look at things with a fresh light. Where that's really notable is vehicle congestion mitigation and telework. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. We do want to be involved with the community, with advocacy groups and things like that. Try and engage in a bit of a dialogue. And this other a number of our commissioners have mentioned this, particularly Chairman McKay, but he's not the only one, has talked about how Fairfax desires to be a test bed for new transportation technologies and things like that. Things like the Relay autonomous bus down in the Mosaic District, things like that. The thing I've added here at the bottom, since the TAC members last saw this, is a goal. And this really came out of the conversation we had about the safe routes to schools back in December, and we'll talk about that a little bit more here as well too. But I think that as an advisor group to the Board of Supervisors, it is our prerogative to do what we think is helps inform the Board of Supervisors. Transportation aids, that's one of the reasons you're here. We like your views on where you think some of the focus areas ought to be. But rather than just sort of take a position, which we can do, and will do again, I'm sure. I think what the TAC is trying to do is we're trying to point to a solution. We're not trying to be just another advocacy group encouraging the Board of Supervisors to take a particular singular course of action. What we're trying to do is balance as best we can, without presuming to take their role of the Board of Supervisors, to try and look at some of the bureaucratic pieces, the political pieces, the technical pieces, and things like that, and try and come up with a balanced recommendation. So that's really what this is trying to get at. As we go into the focus areas, there's three that really have emerged as something we've been spending a good deal of time on. Transit-oriented development, safe streets, and making place and things like that. Those of you who've heard a Deputy County Executive speak will recognize a lot of this language here. And so that has been an area that has emerged. Vehicle congestion mitigation, as I mentioned, transportation demand management, telework, things like that is another area. Obviously, the situation with telework is a lot different now than it was with the pandemic. It was something we're really trying to do before. Now we've done it. The analogy I've used sometimes when talking about it is, before we were trying to lose weight. Now we've lost the weight. Now we're trying to keep it off. What do we need to do to make that happen? The trail, sideways, and bikeways focus area is very important. That's where the Active Fairfax activity is. Safe Streets for All programs. I want to give a shout out in particular to Commissioners Westenhoff and Glenn for spending some time on this and really trying to focus our attentions on what they think are some of the key issues here: pedestrian bike safety, safety education. You see safe routes to schools in there. That's something we talked about last month, and again, we'll hear in a little bit. And so those are the three prime areas we're looking at. As I say that, there's certainly other areas as well too. We talk about strategies and policies. Those are some of the tools that we want to use, some of the venues we want to use to try and maybe make some changes. And at the very bottom of the paper there, or the bottom of the focus areas, we've also got sort of areas to monitor, things that have been important, continue to be important, have not really sort of been developed to the same level of detail as these focus areas I've just described, but the major legacy infrastructure investments, the Route 66s and 495 and stuff like that. Flexible non-POV transportation. There was some work there that the Board of Supervisors did, over a year ago, and monitoring those new technologies. We've also identified at the very bottom a list of potential partners. One of the things you'll see we've started to do here is identify some partners that we could potentially work with and reach out to in the focus areas that we've described. And so I think I'm pleased and proud of the work we've been able to the progress we've been able to make over the past couple of years here. But do know there's more to go. And again, as we've mentioned, a number of our commissioners have made it clear that they want to be able to act on this. So the idea is to get into these topic areas in sufficient depth and sufficient sophistication that we can make well-informed recommendations to the board, and that's really the goal. And these are the areas that we're proposing to focus on. Areas we kind of have been focusing on a little bit as we go forward. So with that, that's kind of the the intro. I would like to open it first to commissioners, just if you've got some comments on this. I know you've seen it a few times here. Any things you'd like to add right now? And then I'm very interested to get the views of the transportation aides from the Board of Supervisors and see what kind of thoughts you may have on this. So first, if I could, any commissioners like to make some comments on the proposed work plan here?
Mike,
yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, I can't see if people are raising their hand, so let's see here.
You might need to mute Mike. There's an echo coming.
All right, let me try and do that then. There's some hands up. So who has their hand up?
Raddick.
Evan, why don't you go ahead then, sir?
Okay. Sorry I didn't get written comments, and I've had a few things come up with the condominium here over the weekend and today. But I think, as I've stated before, yeah, just my concern that we get focused on some topics and start having our meetings address those topics. And then specifically the areas that I've been interested in are the Dulles Airport, the Dulles Rail, and then lastly, bus service from the underrepresented areas of Fairfax County to employment opportunities in other areas. And I did reach Carla Bruce today, and I can speak on that a little bit later in the meeting if you want, where I think the next step would be.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Okay. I do see another hand up. It's okay that it's not a TAC member. I think at this point, if somebody has their hand up, we should call them. So Carla, I think, is it? Clara? Yes.
Yes. Thank
please.
you.
Welcome to
Good evening
comments.
to everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity. What I wanted to share with everyone was that in one of the items of interest here for trail sidewalks and bikeways, the Mason District actually has a working group, the Annandale Greenway Alliance, that is very eager and very motivated to work on a connectivity project that uses existing infrastructures and basically connects any missing links in between them to be able to have a walking and biking route between Annandale Community Park to Manassas Gap Park, downtown Annandale, Mason District Park, Pinecrest Golf Course, which is off Elmdale Road, and Green Spring Gardens Park. And one of my colleagues, Rafael Arancibia, actually is taking the lead on this particular project. He had a scheduling conflict this evening, otherwise he would be presenting. But we wanted to let you know that this alliance has already done some good works, and we even had a what they called the left, rights, distances, surface types, etc. inventory that VDOT had requested that be provided to them was already provided to the agency. And we're looking forward to a collaboration with VDOT and SCDOT staff to make the Annandale Greenway a successful connectivity project.
That is very interesting. Is there a reference to that? I'm not saying there should be. I'm just wondering to the active Fairfax plan. There is there a connection there as one of the opportunities, perhaps? Just wondering if it's something that'll naturally connect to active Fairfax or something we might want to look at helping make sure it's connected.
This is part of that active Fairfax effort, and Chris Wells could speak more a little bit about that because he is familiar with this project.
Okay. We absolutely would like to know the name of the group, and one of the things that we've done here, as you can see, in each of the focus areas, the primary focus areas, we have a commissioner or commissioners that have agreed to sort of facilitate these groups. But while they're have an above average level of interest and ability to dive into this, they of course are limited in their ability to do things as well too. So leveraging their reach by making this information available to them and working with them would be of immense benefit.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Do we have anybody else who wants to comment? I hate to think that the plan is perfect as written. I know that's not the case.
I would like to add something about all of these areas. The one thing, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because of something I saw today. We have a history in the county of sort of building things, and we're very successful at building things. But I think the big challenge for everyone, I think at every level of government, is the maintenance piece. And today, when I was on my way to work, I was driving southbound on Gallows Road. I had just passed the hospital, and I saw a woman walking on the street. Now, knowing that there are walkways along that bridge, the Gallows Road Bridge, she was walking on the street because they were all covered with ice and snow. And she was very astute in watching the traffic signals. So when the signal was red for traffic movement heading south, that's when she would walk. The minute it turned green, she would scooch herself over as close as possible to the little snow berm next to the sidewalk and wait until traffic passed, and then the light would change red again, and then she would continue on her walk. And that just gave me a very disheartened sense of, once again, an example of the wonderful connectivity projects we can come up with to get people from one place to another, but in a situation such as a snowstorm, they are rendered unusable. And I'm not sure how that could be addressed. And I think that's probably a challenge for everybody across the country. But in Fairfax County, that's where my interest lies. And so I'm just wondering if there's any remote possibility that when projects are conceived, could there be some sort of maintenance component added to them to give them a little bit of thought to make sure these projects are usable year-round?
Thank you. There's Sally, correct?
This is Clara from the Mesa District.
Oh, okay. Strange, because Sally. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, I'm Sally, and I was going to just follow up on what Clara said. I saw the exact same thing today, to the point where I actually called the police because it was on Braddock Road and it looked like it was a homeless person and there was nowhere for them to go because of the snow and the ice. Mm-hmm. But I think beyond just the snow and the ice issue is just the maintenance in general on the trails. I know when I was in the Mount Vernon district, so often we would get calls because the trails just aren't maintained. They're there, but you can't ride a bike down them. Kids are tripping over them. Adults are tripping over them. So I think just generally speaking, the county needs to do a better job or have a better way of funding or planning for these big maintenance projects on the great trails that we have.
Sally and Mike, if I just add to that, because Sally and I, we met last week going over a new trail that's going to be opened down by the VRE. We talked about that a little bit specifically with one of the VDOT people. And apparently the priority for snow maintenance in the county is police and fire stations, and I think hospitals was the third one. And then, they work off of that one. So, I think that's going to be something under the control of the Board of Supervisors, how much, money they're willing to throw at that and where they want to set their priorities beyond those three.
I would suggest that perhaps when the county gets money from other resources, such as, I don't know, the federal infrastructure bill, I'm hoping we're going to see some money there, that then possibly we could get some of those funds diverted toward maintenance needs.
Well, this
isn't only a Board of Supervisors decision. This is a collaborative agency community-wide decision as to how maintenance can be procured for existing infrastructures. And I would say that any opportunity that we have for funding, because we are limited as a county to the real estate tax for funding everything that we do, I would say anything through the state, grants, federal government that we could possibly get, start thinking about maintenance and incorporating maintenance in these projects that are getting built. And not to forget the ones that are already existing, because Sally's absolutely right.
True. And I will say we have discussed this here in the TAC, and not, of course, as we know, not being able to solve it here now, but absolutely, if there are more resources available, it's certainly well within the TAC's prerogatives to suggest to the Board of Supervisors that perhaps additional resources be dedicated to maintenance and snow removal and things like that, perhaps partnering with neighborhood groups and things like that. But I will point on page 2 in the walking and biking network section, right after building a connected trail network, it talks about sidewalk, trail maintenance, snow removal. So we have identified it as a topic area there, and so it'll be our challenge to flesh that out and bring that to life.
Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it. If I could move on, I see some hands up. If I could, Alexis, your hand was up. Did you just want to?
You just pointed out what I was going to say, that it's on the snow removal and maintenance is on our work plan, and could talk about this all night, but yeah, I agree. I think we should move it along if we can, please.
Appreciate it. Yeah, because we are trying to make sure we haven't missed something important. There'll be plenty of time later, and we'll have to figure out ways to dive into things. Frank, I saw your hand up and down again. We hit your question too, just as we were talking through things.
Oh, thanks. Just wanted to mention along the same trail that Sally and Kevin were talking about a little farther to the east. We're in discussions with some residents who are suggesting other resources, such as you were talking about the commuter choice program. There's funds to maintain and build connectivity. There is just one example of many in the county. There's one of those fair weather crossings where you can get across on concrete posts only if the weather's not too rainy. So there's just one of those options for looking at other options to fund trail connectivity and maintenance.
Roger, I will call you in a second to see your hands up. I will just say, as we discuss things, as you think about things, groups we should work with, resources we should draw upon, activities that are already taking place. We're taking notes here, but I would encourage you, please, if you could, email Calvin with some of the ideas there, and he can send it to me and to other commissioners there, and help make sure that we don't forget potentially an important connection just because we couldn't write fast enough or something like that. So please do encourage to do that.
So
fantastic. Thank you. Thanks, Frank. Really appreciate it. Roger, I see your hand is up. hopefully you can hear us. We can hear you. It's not encouraging. Roger, unfortunately, we can't understand. Okay.
Glad it's not calling in from the Ukraine, or I'd be really worried.
Exactly. Roger, I'm not sure what we can do here this evening, but I would suggest if you can call it on your phone, leave your phone open, and then mute it when others are speaking. That might work. We might be able to hear you through your phone, because the Teams connection is just not working for us here. Okay. All right. Are there others who would like to make some comments on the work plan here? Okay, well, this is actually encouraging that I think we've not missed by such a wide margin, that folks are pointing out missed things here and there. I tell you what, why don't we go to areas of interest to the transportation aides, and that might actually loop back into some changes or corrections we might want to make in the work plan. So if I could, can I ask the transportation aides? I would ask, please, each of you, if you don't mind, please, to tell us something that you're interested in. Even if it's something that's already captured here, maybe in fact, especially if it is, because that's encouraging. But if you could let us know some of the things that you and your boss cares about, we'd very much like to hear about that and see if there's anything we can partner on. I don't want to call names, but is there anybody who'd like to start the conversation?
Good evening. This is Marcus from the chairman's office, and just to piggyback on the previous comments, and obviously. Well, let me just take a step back. The congestion, for anyone who lives in Northern Virginia, understands that reduction of congestion is huge, not only for quality of life, but of course for greenhouse gases. Congestion is just, is such a huge contributor to GHGs. But back to the previous points regarding trails, so many comments that we receive in the chairman's office are surrounding the maintenance of trails. And obviously during COVID, the usage of trails has, just skyrocketed. If there's a silver lining to COVID, certainly folks getting out there and using our trail system is one of them. And of course, many of you know about the active Fairfax transportation plan, which focuses on filling gaps. So that's a huge priority of the chairman, and obviously getting folks out there and using multimodal systems of transportation. It all goes to the fight against climate change, the fight against congestion, but also, the quality of our lives as well. So trails is huge. And so that's my comment there. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcus. Appreciate that very much. It's always nice to be tracking with the chairman. That's a good thing. So, Shirley, I will call on you at some point here. I know we've had some conversations in the past, and obviously Mr. Alcorn's role as the chair of the board transportation committee. Welcome to speak up now. I know, quite honestly, that when we had talked before, talk about something as simple as streetlights. I know that's an issue too. That's no longer on the paper here, because that really is sort of part of road design standards and safety and things like that. We can't possibly put every piece of data something we might look at here. But I would ask Joel, if you don't mind, how are we tracking, you think, with Mr. Alcorn? Any changes to some of his priorities since we talked before, and then he was kind enough to come talk to our offsite back almost a year ago? Okay. All right. Well, we could have some connectivity issues there. Are there other transportation aides that would like to make some comments here on the paper, or again, any areas you'd like us to focus on, things that you'd like to see out of the relationship with ATTAC here? I know from Supervisor Faust's area, unfortunately, Jane Edmondson was not able to join us. This evening because she had to accompany Supervisor Faust to an event. But the division of responsibility in our office is projects and things like that are obviously the purview. Well, they are the purview of the supervisor. We do more sort of policy and general projects, general activities here, on the TAC. I would anticipate maybe that's the same in other areas there. Just wanted to sort of ask that question here while we're gathered. Okay, all right. Oh, I see another hand up. Clara again.
Yes, thank you. I've already mentioned earlier one of the items of interest for Supervisor Gross and our community is the Annandale Greenway project, but also safe routes to school and, globally speaking, safe routes for pedestrians and cyclists are of great interest to Supervisor Gross. Lighting, of course, is a feature that sometimes is incorporated in transportation-related projects, and they're also incorporated in revitalization areas. I know that we have 2 of them here in the Mason District for which, we have successfully incorporated lighting. But also, perhaps there may be some projects where lighting can be a component. I don't believe that necessarily that road design is the only means by which lighting is part of the discussion or implementation. There may be some other opportunities, and I would ask that, sort of to be vigilant for that opportunity as it comes up, as we gather suggestions from the public for connectivity projects or other projects that perhaps, rather than connect what's existing, may be projects that initiate some sort of multimodal way of getting around Fairfax County that wouldn't involve a car. So I don't think we should limit our scope to, well, if it's by a road, it's going to be built with a road project. I think that's pretty short-sighted.
Agreed. And certainly I know trails is another place where lighting can be an issue. I know trails are not always lit. Just off the top of your head, can you think of other areas where we should incorporate lighting and be sure not to overlook it, so to speak?
Well, pedestrian projects such as, we have any bridges that might be installed to go over ravines, for example, or some narrow portion of a roadway or something where the environment tends to be dark because of a lot of tree cover, for example. That would, cut down quite a bit on any nearby streetlights as lumens. That's what I would suggest. But more importantly, anywhere in the county where you might have a bridge that gets you over any body of water or any place where there isn't a roadway connectivity or any other way where you have to literally build a bridge to get somebody from one place to another, I think would be helpful. And I know that we have a pedestrian bridge off of eastbound Columbia Pike that goes over a ravine that once a year we have to get vegetation come back away from it because vines will grow and cover it up. And, for anybody who's a pedestrian at dusk, that could be a safety issue for them because they are not visible. It obscures them as they walk. So we keep an eye on that and try to not let vegetation cover it so that you can't see who's on the bridge. Lighting would be helpful there.
Okay.
And that's just an example.
That makes sense. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Patricia Leslie, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I'm from Supervisor Palchik's office, and I just wanted to say we're looking for capital bike share locations. Always, we are looking for one in the Blake Lane area and Route 29. recently, a couple of locations, the area residents vetoed the locations. And of course, we listened to residents. We're not going to put a capital bike share sites or bike racks where the residents do not want them. They didn't want them primarily because they consumed parking. We work closely with VDOT and I-66 communications team regarding the impacts of that construction on neighborhoods. And the I-66 communications team is very quick to respond to residents who have complaints or questions. So I'd like to applaud that for that communications. And this is not on subject, but our Gallows Road recycling bin is going to have to be moved because it's at the Dunloring Administrative Education Office, which will be turned into a school. So we're looking for a new purple bin glass site for that in the eastern part of the district. If anybody, I know Jeremy Hancock has been talking about this with us REA calendar on our staff. So just wanted to throw this out in case anybody has any ideas. We would welcome that.
Okay. Appreciate that. It's a good venue to throw the suggestion out there. You just never know, somebody might have an idea.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I know
okay.
Braddock's trying to get one down at the Burke VRE, but we won't poach on that district.
Well, I don't know. Can you ever have too many purple bins? Maybe. Okay.
They fill up quickly.
Yes.
This is Sally in Braddock District again. So something, and this may not necessarily fit into this evening either, but since we have board aides on here and we don't tend to get together very often, I'm going to throw it out there. Something that I have been thinking about ways to do, or to, I guess, do education within the community is we get a lot of calls for new crosswalks or improved crosswalks with the rapid flashing beacon. We get a lot of requests for new sidewalks, and people just don't understand the requirements that the crosswalks have to meet and the funding for the sidewalk. They think it's just pouring out some cement and there you go, there's a sidewalk. So I've been thinking about ways that we can better educate people beyond just calling our office and talking to me. So if any of the board aides have had meetings about it with HOAs or any creative ways that you've tried to educate folks, I'd love to hear it. And I know FCDOT used to have a meeting with the board aides. I think it was a couple times a year. I don't remember for sure, but I think that could be helpful to return to something like that. Because this is the first time in, I think, 2 or 3 years that the transportation board aides have had any sort of meeting together. And we appreciate TAC or at least I do appreciate TAC for inviting us to be part of this tonight. So thank you.
Happy to do it, and happy to be hijacked a little bit for the greater good of the county and brought back to what we're doing and all this together. So appreciate that, Sally. Question.
I have a suggestion for Sally if other board aides don't want to jump in.
Go ahead.
I think if the county could perhaps produce some kind of like 101 materials. I know that the waste management department does a lot of these kind of one-pagers or postcards or fact sheets. As a Citizens Association president, that makes it really easy for me to share kind of what the rules are or what's going on with the community without, with very minimal effort. So like, kind of like a land use or a transportation 101 or a sidewalks 101, like what's the process for X, with some basic facts and then some basic actions that a community member can take that makes it really, and then kind of distribute that to your HOAs and your citizen association contacts. That kind of thing makes it really, because I hear those questions all the time of like, why is the sidewalk cracked here? Why can't we get this fixed? Why, why this, why that? And it makes it really easy if I can just grab a resource like that and share it versus typing a long comment or a long email to answer the person's question.
That's a great idea. I do have a lot of template emails that I use, but so often they have to be tweaked and adjusted to specific things. But I like the idea of having just kind of a general one-page thing that we can share. So thank you, Alexis. I appreciate it.
Sure.
And kind of like, I'm sorry, the thing that occurred to me is they prepare obituaries for famous people before they die, so you're ready when they die. There's probably a number of areas here we could probably anticipate that we get questions on. Sorry for the morbid connection there, but my brain works that way. I apologize.
Yes, it's a great idea. Yeah.
This is
Thanks,
Peyton from
Lily.
Springfield District, and I totally agree about some one-pagers. Like, for example, FCDOT for like its RTAP, the traffic calming and such, and those things. They have a nice, small, succinct flow chart for each thing, like watch for children, cut through traffic, things like that. And if they could do something for that for crosswalks and the rapid flashing beacons, and just how do we get a trail in Fairfax County? How do we get this missing piece of sidewalk? Because honestly, the answer is not necessarily the same all the time. And I like having sample emails to work with, like just like you, Sally, but it's like you have to tweak them because honestly, we don't always know the answer, even if it's like the same exact example as a previous project in a different neighborhood, but there's so many factors. And it'd be helpful to be able to set expectations earlier on. And then, so when it's 6 years down the line and they're finally pouring the concrete or the asphalt, it's not massive disappointment, just kind of lay it down on the line from the get-go.
Copy. Appreciate that, Peyton. I think that's definitely a good idea there. Jeremy, I see your hand's been up for a little bit. Calling you, please.
Yeah, thanks. I was going to, similar to what Peyton said, I think on the traffic calming, that's one area that we haven't explicitly mentioned in this. We talk about road design, in future road design, we talk about it in terms of pedestrian and bike safety, I think design standards. But I know when I talk to folks in the community, that's kind of one of the bigger issues that I hear about, some level of frustration on the limitations of that. And I just wondering from transportation staff if you see any opportunities in that for TAC to look at traffic calming, or maybe we're limited in what we can do with the states, but just curious folks' opinion on that.
To me, it sounds like a road design issue, perhaps not dissimilar from the 85% throughput factor there, where we've identified some things that, some long-held criteria that may need to be looked at again. So, traffic calming is part of the road diet. Maybe those things are related, perhaps. I think it's certainly something we can look at. Okay.
And sorry, this is Sally again, just to
Yes.
piggyback on what he said. I feel like with COVID, I was in the Mount Vernon district office when COVID hit, and we saw a huge spike in requests for traffic calming with people being home more. And I think Braddock doesn't have as many traffic calming projects as Mount Vernon, but in the year that I've been in Braddock, there has been an increase in requests over time too. So it's definitely something that people are concerned about and get very frustrated about when they either don't qualify based on the numbers or based on the criteria, they can't even get started. So I think if there are other options that we can offer in some capacity too, that would be helpful.
Okay, interesting. Interesting. Roger, your hand's up again. You're going to try it again here?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, actually.
Oh, wonderful. I can get rid of this. Thank you, Claire, for showing up. I'm glad to have you. Secondly, one of the things that was mentioned here was that the transportation staff, supervisor staff, don't get together very often. Is this something that it would be worth the TAC facilitating, that we might be able to do this on a periodic basis? really invite the transportation staff members to join us. And third, in terms of the templates or paper, the one pagers, an issue that I'd raised at the last meeting about streetlights. Do we have, or would it be worthwhile to have a one pager explaining to citizens how they can report streetlight outages? I had to kind of learn this from Dominion, but the citizens are more or less responsible for reporting these to Dominion. And Dominion does a pretty good job of fixing them once they're notified.
Now, as we talk about it, these one pagers, they also sound a bit like frequently asked questions. These could be on our, on the county website or something like that, where as try to make the county more accessible to our citizens, which I'm sure the county is doing some things in that area. It's something that's always been a priority. Maybe there's a piece there. We want some transportation one pagers in the county outreach to our citizens. Sort of thinking out loud.
Mike, if I can
Yes.
jump in there.
Sure.
Two things on the traffic calming. I think we have the supervisors, the aides, I think have a template that they work off of, but digesting that down to a one pager would probably be helpful, because right now I know in Burke Center, Dennis Gulakowski, the vice president of the board of trustees, last year oversaw a traffic calming request in his neighborhood for speed bumps, and the general public might think you call the supervisor's office, say I want a speed bump, and it's done. It's an extensive path that you have to go through, and also involving a fair amount of your neighbors on that street that you want it. So I would echo that if that's digested down, the template that they have could be also put into a one pager to distribute. I think that would help everybody out. And then secondly, Roger, that's interesting on streetlights, because at one point a year ago, I made an attempt we had a huge number of streetlights out on Burke Center Parkway, and I walked a good part of it, manually transcribing them and getting them into Dominion. But generally the problem is it's on a street, you're going to see it when you drive by. You can't stop your car and stop traffic and get out and take the poll number and put it into Dominion. So I think what I would like to request at Dominion, that they be a little more proactive when they have their crews out and they see that they either take action right away or note the poll location so they can get to it later. I think that's way down on their priority, and I think that could be elevated a little bit.
Unfortunately, they're out during the day.
Most of them, yeah, but they are out there at night sometimes. And maybe they could, dispatch somebody at night periodically for the main routes, but something to look at.
Okay. Peyton, I see your hand is up.
The county has an excellent resource for reporting streetlights. We have an online streetlight reporting map, and you basically can just type in the address and you zoom in, and it will have clickable dots of the different poles in the area, and it tells you the pole number, and you can click on it to report it directly to our Public Works, who will send it on to Dominion or Novec, depending whose it is. So you don't have to look at the pole numbers unless it's a pole that's not on that map, which has happened a million times, but it's usually, I'd say it's 90% reliable, and it's fixed quickly unless it's some, more catastrophic problem related to the light. It's relatively new, and it's so helpful.
Where do you find this? Is this a particular URL?
Where is it?
If you just do streetlight report, streetlight outage on fairfaxcounty.gov, it'll come up.
Oh.
Good to know.
Okay. Solve a problem here practically just by getting together. That's encouraging. Okay. Well, are there other comments perhaps? Roger, to pick up on your point about perhaps having the TAC convene gatherings of transportation aides. Anytime we can do something helpful, I would argue we want to do it. But I think also we want to be thinking about what the topic is, because I can envision a number of topics where the TAC would be less involved in something the aides we want to talk about, or vice versa. So I think we want to keep in communication, but I think also we want to be mindful of the fact that some topics are of more interest to one group than the other. I was intrigued about the comment where FCDOT has had in the past met with the aides. I'm sure they do periodically, continue to this day, but that's another interesting venue there because again, picking up on the way the division of responsibilities in the Drainsville district, FCDOT obviously working particular projects. That's a natural for the individual, to work with the transportation aides there, but, recognize that there's no hard and fast rules. So, okay. Well, are there any other comments? I will say that I will sort of leave the work plan open a little bit. If you have comments, want to write something up, quite honestly, transportation aid or obviously a commission members as well. Still open for a little while here. We're going to try and get on the supervisors, the board transportation committee agenda to make a presentation here. But one advantage we have is that while Freedom of Information Act rules prevent us from getting together outside a TAC meeting in groups of 3 or more TAC members. No such restriction applies, I don't believe, to Board of Supervisors of Transportation aides getting together or them meeting with a TAC member or two. So we can certainly have conversations about that as well too as we go forward, and welcome finding a sustainable, productive dialogue for sort of both sides, so to speak, as we go forward. There's no rule that says we have to take all the time allocated for every agenda item. And so if that's the case, having to move forward a little bit and maybe get done a little bit sooner here. We still have a couple, one item in particular, and I know a couple of the transportation aides have mentioned it already. And of course, you're welcome to stay with us for the conversation. But would like to transition, if there's no other comments on the transportation, the TAC work plan, or general comments from the transportation aides, I would propose to move on to the next topic on the agenda, the Safe Routes to Schools discussion. So, okay. Back in December, Commissioner Glenn raised the issue with us about the Safe Routes to School program and the financial pressures it was under. We had a very robust discussion amongst members of the TAC. It became clear quickly that this was an important program, was serving an important role. We determined eventually not to do a resolution that evening. We wanted to hear from FCDOT and, if we could, from the Fairfax County Public Schools about the program a little bit here. We did decide at the meeting that we could sort of authorize the chairman, i.e. me, to put together a letter to the Board of Supervisors about the Safe Routes to School program. I have Alexis, again, thank you, put together with Kelly, I'm sure, I suspect, put together a letter for the TAC to send for me to sign. Rather than go ahead and send that before the meeting, what I thought I'd do is send that out to the commission so you could see what Alexis had proposed and hold that thought, as it were, while we go through the Safe Routes to School discussion here and see if we want to make any adjustments to the letter. In my view, the bottom line of the letter, the way it's written right now, certainly to bring it to the attention of the Board of Supervisors is perfectly appropriate, absolutely something we can do. If there are things we might want to add to be a bit more illuminating with the board, we can certainly do that. What I wanted to do was have that conversation, but out of deference to Alexis and Alexis, again, thank you for your efforts back in December. I'd open the floor for a moment to see if you want to make any opening comments, and then would like to move to Chris and Lauren to begin the conversation.
Thanks, Mike. I just want to mention it was actually Jeremy who helped out with drafting the letter.
Thank you.
Some invaluable contributions to that. Thanks, Jeremy. And I don't have anything prepared to say. I think we had a good discussion last time, and I think where we landed was, folks had questions that were really better for FCPS and FCDOT to answer. So I'd like to spend time addressing any questions or concerns that we might have with them, with the experts, so that we can figure out, what we want to do next.
Thank you, Alexis, very much. With that, let me turn it over to Chris. I saw you getting warmed up there, so if you could give us a little intro there, appreciate it very much. Welcome again. Thank you, Chris.
Sure. Thank you, members of the commission, board aides. Hello. Actually, Lauren could not ultimately join us tonight. She has a sick kid she's taking care of, and apologize that neither one of us could make it last month, because I know this is timely and related to both the school's budget and the county's budget. So with me tonight is Sally Smallwood of Fairfax County Public Schools. She is the person in the position right now for the Safe Routes to School grant funded position. At least I assume she's here. I didn't look, but I think she's here. And we've prepared a presentation briefly to just sort of go over how we work together and separately. Essentially, there's the inside schools operation and there's the outside schools operation. And Sally is, of course, inside schools, and I'm, of course, outside schools. So with that, Sally, are you here somewhere?
Yes, I'm on.
Here.
Okay, then I will go ahead and start sharing. Oh wait, I got to pull up PowerPoint first. I'm still learning. After all this time, I'm still learning how to use all these things. Okay, there's PowerPoint. So now I click Windows. I was doing it wrong the other day. See, it didn't work. Oh, let me get out of shared content because I didn't have it open. Let me share content again. There's a fourth window, and there's PowerPoint, and I will hit slideshow. So go ahead, Sally.
Okay, well, we just to kind of highlight what I've done. I've been the coordinator since the position was made available through safety loop funding. So in 2014 in January, I started, although the grant was awarded, I think in the fall of 2013. But it's always been an 80-20% split, or it became an 80-20% split after the third year. And then I serve all 198 schools and centers, or try to. My focus has always been on encouraging walking and biking because I don't have the transportation background with the infrastructure and that kind of thing. Although, just like you were speaking about earlier, the number one question I get from parents is, how do you get a sidewalk? How do we get traffic calming? Those kinds of things. So it would be great to have some place to send parents, because I usually send them, you need to talk to your board of supervisors person, is what my answer always is. But our program managed 2 traveling fleets of bikes that visit schools. Usually we're at a month at a middle school. We're at elementary schools anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks with bike lessons. And then about 29 of our schools have their own set of bikes. So those teachers are already trained, can do lessons on their own, and have the bikes whenever they want to as part of their PE curriculum. Promote walk-in bike to school days and try to do other special days to encourage more walking. I do a monthly newsletter and other social media,
And then again, which I'm not an expert at. And then I work with communities and schools that are interested in improving their safety. So might be that looking at arrival and dismissal, might be doing a walk audit. We recently did a big walk arrival audit at Lake Braddock Secondary School. So that's the kind of things that I do, but all on a part-time basis. You want to show the next slide, Chris?
Yes, I'm trying to, but it's not responding.
Okay.
Come on. How about page down? Nope, that's not working either. Let me hit escape. Oh, goodness. There we go. It moved on my screen.
Okay, so it's moved on mine as well. So these are my thoughts. I did let my supervisor know, and I did talk to our safety specialist, JJ Banichowski, last summer, along with somebody in another person in transportation, but not the superintendent, Francine Furby. She sent someone else and tried to explain that these are the things that I thought needed to happen moving forward, because we did not apply for we were given the opportunity to apply for TAP funding for Safe Routes to School coordinator, but the application and procedure to get the grant funding was so complex. It's generally set up for infrastructure projects and not non-infrastructure projects. We weren't able to, even using our grants office, weren't able to complete the application. So we were hoping to look for other grants. Our grant funding was severely cut this last year. Normally we have about $90,000. And this year we're down to, I think it's $29,500 is what we got. So essentially only pays for my salary. But my recommendations moving forward is that we do get a full-time Safe Routes to School coordinator in larger areas, across the country. That's a full-time position for a person, and continue to build on the 5 E's of Safe Routes to School, which is education, encouragement, engineering, equity, and evaluation, which we do try to hit on all of those. But like I said, I spend most of my time on education and encouragement. I think this position should sit in FCPS Transportation Department and coordinate with the buses, walking, bicyclists, car riders, all forms of transportation to school. And then really get a big push from FCPS to push active transportation among students, and make a better attempt at reducing parents driving their children to school, although it's their prerogative to bring their child to school any way they like. But really make a push towards reducing that car traffic congestion and the accompanying pollution and the safety problems it brings when you bring more traffic around kids that are walking to school. Each school should have a Safe Routes to School plan, and have some kind of mapping ability or a map for them, that so that parents and kids know the safest way to get to school, and identify any barriers that might be to transportation, and to work with FCDOT on seeing if we can't, if it's a missing sidewalk, if it's a missing trail, that we can't fill that in and make it safer so that more kids could walk. We'd like to collaborate with FCDOT on any kind of project that uses SRTS TAP funding, just so that by reducing buses in our county, that would be a savings to our school system's budget. And then we continue to collaborate with Active Fairfax and other coalitions to kind of promote a county-wide initiative about walking. I know in Arlington County, they have a regular walking group that promotes through social media and other means, and works closely with Safe Routes to School at doing all their media and promoting active transportation for Arlington citizens. I'd like to see something like that, where we, had a one message throughout our county that we could get behind. So those are my thoughts on safe routes to school and what should happen next.
Okay, and I'm here, but since I'm presenting, I lost? Well, hopefully you can you still see the presentation?
We can.
Okay.
If you go to page 4, slide 4, hopefully you can still see it, if that's what that's your
Yeah.
plan.
I had to minimize things to turn my camera back on, if you care to see me. But then I will continue. Okay, so Sally summarized a great summary of her effort, and from my perspective, from pedestrian safety perspective, certainly I hear from concerned parents, and I've heard from concerned parents for 20 years about the safety of their kids getting to school, and we, from a staff perspective, I completely support what Commissioner Alexis is pursuing, and the importance of Sally's position. Sally's position has an exponential multiplicative effect that really goes throughout the entire school system. From our FCDOT perspective, we're the infrastructure people, so we work on the outside. Before us, though, for decades, the county, so the commission is aware, since the 70s, employees before, the generations before Sally and I worked together to build sidewalks to schools, and those were done through neighborhood improvement programs, previous, again, programs throughout the 70s and the 80s that existed to build infrastructure in the county. Since I've been on board, we regularly communicate with schools, and they have provided us with lists about sidewalks that would be able to eliminate bus routes, and in particular the ones that are so tortuously close to a school that you ought to be able to walk to that school, but you can't, and so for safety reasons, school buses them. So I've had the pleasure of working with 3 different Office of Safety and Security staff from schools, and they over the years have provided us with this list of sidewalks, and luckily we've had success. So as far as the actual name brand, Safe Routes to School, it's a federally funded program that provides grant funding for Sally's position, but also provides infrastructure funding under TE, which was Transportation Enhancements, or TAP, which is now Transportation Alternatives Program. That's federal highways funded, administered through VDOT, and it was a once a year application cycle. Now it's a once every 2-year application cycles for competitive funding throughout the states, but throughout the state, singular. We've been very successful at it. We've applied for different funding projects, some large, some small. Flint Hill Elementary School, we improved 2 crosswalks and added a rapid flash beacon. The New Graham Road Elementary School, we added a median refuge. The Westbriar Elementary School, we added a missing sidewalk segment along Old Courthouse. Wolf Trap Elementary School has not been constructed yet, but that's also a median refuge road diet project there. The 2 most recent ones we were approved for, and Jeremy was one of our community champions for Shrevewood Elementary School, where we have a combination of sidewalk, crosswalk connections to get in and around and to the school, and then Orange Hunt Elementary School, which is also a crosswalk project. In this latest round of Safe Routes applications, we applied for a sidewalk project for Bush Hill Elementary School in the Lee District. Separate from that funding source, which is again a dedicated funding source for schools, but also one that has strings attached, and some of those strings require community involvement, community champions, some demonstrated effort and ultimately documented effort to go into the application, that not every school may have had that in place. The board itself, in our big transportation priorities, project priorities plan, which was originally FY 15 to 20 and is now FY 15 to 25, we funded 23 different sidewalk projects that are direct school walking route projects, originally estimated to be, about $20 million, and ultimately will be about $40 million of sidewalk projects that the board funded directly. And then lastly, we coordinate, as the commission's aware, we work with VDOT every summer on their summer repaving, which originally was focused more on just bike lanes, and then bike lanes actually have evolved to be an important traffic calming tool, because that roadway narrowing effect reduces speed. But we've also incorporated crosswalks, and so certainly as part of that annual repaving coordination that we do with VDOT, when we are in areas of schools, we work with FCPS on crosswalk needs and crosswalk confusion, because sometimes there's multiple crosswalks and there's only a crossing guard at one crosswalk, and so we as part of that annual effort work to do the best that we can when we're going to restripe. And then last, a lesser detail is when schools themselves are doing renovations to their campuses, we work with them on our recommendations for bicycle parking and for pedestrian safety. So with that, I will escape again, stop presenting, and Sally and I can take questions.
Hey, Chris and Sally, thanks for that. This is Alexis. I wanted to clarify the funding that we're interested in, I guess, examining with regards to the FCPS budget and the Board of Supervisors budget coming up, since that's the time-sensitive thing. They're kind of two separate streams or buckets of funding for Safe Routes to School. There's that biannual every 2-year cycle, Chris, that you mentioned, where you're applying for infrastructure funds that get allocated to various projects that are championed and are just kind of change year to year. And then there's the bucket that funds the coordinator position that Sally is in today and the programming at schools. I guess can you clarify for the TAC? My understanding is it's the funding for the coordinator position and the programming that is no longer going to be grant funded, and that we're asking FCPS, and we're hoping that FCPS and the board will look to fund for the future since the grant funding is no longer there. Is that correct? And can you clarify if I've misrepresented that?
Well, I can speak to that the Safety Lou funding ran out. And so there was no longer a separate pot of money for coordinators. And so now there were some school systems in Virginia that did apply to the TAP funding because we're all going for the same bucket of money. And so infrastructure projects come out of that, as well as non-infrastructure projects like the Safe Routes to School coordinator. And so had we applied for that, the grant would start in October of 2022 and would run for 2 years. But we did not apply for that grant. We just didn't have the bandwidth to put that together, that funding. So there may be other grants out there for a coordinator, but eventually the point of the program was to eventually have schools take over and do their own self-fund, or whatever entity. Not all Safe Routes to School coordinators work with schools. Sometimes they work with other nonprofits, hospitals, and things like that. But the goal eventually was for schools to fund themselves, or whoever, counties to fund the coordinator themselves, as opposed to relying on grant funding.
Thank you, Sally. And so folks know the Safety Lou acronym that you may have heard earlier is a reference to the federal grant acronym that I could not say it right now off the top of my head, but it is an acronym that just refers to that federal funding that is no longer available, right? Is that correct, Sally?
Correct.
It's the big federal transportation bill. So I can't keep track. Safety Lou, T-Lou, it changes acronyms, but it's the massive United States government federal transportation authorization, which currently is the infrastructure bill, which has transportation alternative programs included in it.
The one that just passed and was signed a couple months ago.
Correct. It's my understanding, and Brent is here from our coordination and funding division, but he might not know any more than me.
That's right.
It's my understanding that is part of it.
Yeah, the new infrastructure bill or law, incorporated the surface transportation program in it. So all of that's included in it now.
Okay. I do have a couple questions, but I would also want to defer to other commissioners who might have a question to first. Kevin, you look poised.
Yeah. All right. So Sally, your position ends in September.
August 15th, 2022.
And you go to other responsibilities within the school system and devote no time to this after that?
Actually, I'm a retired teacher, and I'm planning on being a retired Safe Routes to School coordinator. So,
right. Good for you, and thank you for everything you've been able to accomplish.
But I would hate to see the program go away. And I think it has done a lot of good things for Fairfax County Public Schools, and is a worthwhile program to continue to fund.
So, Mike, all that I would ask then is that at the end of this discussion, we have a definite grasp of what the action item is.
Mm-hmm.
Is it to the Board of Supervisors? Is it to somebody else? But what should the TAC be doing if they agree that this position should be continued?
Mm-hmm. Copy. Agreed. So, if I could ask some questions, unless there's and others can ask questions afterwards as well. But Chris, don't have to put your charts back up there again. But I remember you had a line there. I think it was spending $40 million for 23 projects for sidewalks to schools and things like that. Is that something that I'll say the new Sally would be involved in, the next Sally would be involved in? Is that something that the school coordinator would be involved in, perhaps, in helping to shape how to set up those programs?
Sure, absolutely. In fact, in Sally's presentation, she made the point that there should be a Safe Routes to School plan for every single school. And, historically, the way we've worked, the way both schools have provided me input, and both how I have done my job is somewhat backwards looking. We look at the missing infrastructure. We're a 400 square mile, 275-year-old county, and so unfortunately, the reality is we have missing infrastructure. Developments that were built in the 1940s and 50s and 60s did not always build the sidewalks that today's developments are required to build, or even when today's requirements build, they only build within their development, and that could leave a couple hundred feet missing just outside of their property. So we've historically just looked at these the obvious, I guess I would say, obvious missing infrastructure. And so in Sally's presentation, this point of a Safe Routes to School plan, that's a much more holistic look at literally what is the infrastructure, every walking route for every student, and not just the infrastructure, the crossing challenges, so on and so forth, for every school. So what is it, Sally? 180 or so, somewhere between 100 and 200 schools. So I would certainly echo, the need for that, and I guess what I would say is a more modern or a version 2.0 approach that I think still the skill set is inside schools and outside schools, and schools so the commission understands how it works. The school's Office of Safety and Security for every student in schools determines whether they are a bus rider or a walker. And what determines that is the safety of their walk. If their walk is not safe, if their walk has some sort of safety hazard or challenge, such as a busy road to cross or an isolation hazard or things like that, the most conservative recommendation is for them to be bus riders. And so that's the inside schools part, and then how do we solve these issues? That's the outside schools part. So
okay.
So yes, we've funded, historically we've just taken that list of sidewalk requests, and that's what we funded in the TPP. But this idea moving forward would take that idea to version 2.0.
But good, and I see, Mary Pauline had her hand up. I will, Mary Pauline, call on you in a minute. I did want to just sort of ask one more quick question about this piece of it here. I wonder if even Sally, as experienced as she is, could keep up with all of the Safe Routes to School programs for 180 schools. Are we really looking at a need for more than that, or how does this relate to each of the individual schools? Because I think it's one thing to say we've got one person sort of coordinating that across all the schools, but what kinds of complementary activities would we need in the schools to make sure that that last mile of planning is done, so to speak?
Well, I mean, anybody that had a school system this large, you would have more than one coordinator.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say. But in terms of the education, I think I've left that in pretty good hands. Our physical education team will no longer have a traveling fleet, so there won't be the need to have the bikes be moved, the traveling bikes be moved. They'll be given to two schools to be permanently. Schools could still share. I'm trying to make sure that we have physical education teachers that are trained to teach bike safety, so that they can continue to train others, so that we can have a turnaround training for others, so that piece is there. You don't have somebody that will say, oh, by the way, walk to school day is coming up, get yourself registered, unless you have some kind of coordination. So somebody has to promote it. So in addition to this, looking at schools and having a Safe Routes to School plan, you also have to have that encouragement piece, so that walking and biking becomes the norm, as opposed to to not the norm, and driving your child to school seems to be the norm. And I know it's COVID right now, but even before that, the default is always get in the car. I'll take you to school. My neighbor lives on the cul-de-sac with me. We live 2 blocks from the school. She gets driven to school every day. So I just like, it's like, no.
It's gotta hurt.
Yeah, it hurts.
Appreciate that. That makes sense. That makes sense. That there's definitely a step up is what we're talking about here. I recognize that becomes
right. And I think if you looked at other Safe Routes to School programs across the United States, you would find that they have a staff, not just a coordinator.
Got you. Mary Pauline, did you have a question? I saw your hands down now, but it was up before. Is there your question passed, or do you want to? Get tired of
this is more just a procedural question, just to make it clear that so this position was obviously not included in the draft budget that the superintendent proposed.
Correct.
Okay.
It is not there.
Dangerous to speculate, but I'll ask. Why? I mean, that's part of the reason we're having the conversation here is because the activity here has not gotten sufficient attention. Maybe just sort of got overlooked a little bit. Do you think
I'm
it is?
not sure how far it went up the chain. My supervisor and her supervisor were aware, but I'm in the health and physical education office in the curriculum office, whereas the position originally started and who's with Jeffrey Plattenberg and the facilities. So whether Mr. Plattenberg is aware or not, I think he is aware, but whether or not it didn't get, I don't think it got put into the budget.
I guess then I'm not sure how many representatives from supervisors' offices we still have on this. If we still have some of them on, any of them want to comment as to what they think chances are of this going, or if this letter will actually do anything to change anything?
Well, so let me jump in because Kevin made the point earlier that the TAC, certainly wants to have clear direction on what the ask is, and that this is actually where it gets very complicated. I'm the staff support for the Trails, Sidewalks, and Bikeways Committee. They also have expressed an interest in this subject, and they also are interested in writing a letter to support this position. But the TAC and the TSB are both what are called boards, authorities, and commissions, and your roles are to advise the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors. The Fairfax County Board of Supervisors approves the county's budget, which includes a transfer to the Fairfax County Public Schools of approximately half of our budget, $3.5 billion. However, the Fairfax County School Board is the entity that sets the school's budget priorities, and in particular details such as a staffing position such as this. So the two boards meet annually and actually throughout the year and set joint priorities such as climate change improvements that can be done, with energy policies and things like this. But they typically don't get to the level of a particular position endorsement. And certainly the Board of Supervisors does not dictate to the school board what should be within their budget. That is their role. And I've worked here for 24 years, and I'm not exactly sure how Virginia set this up. But the role is two separate governments, one of which provides the money to the other government, the school board, and then the school board is an independent entity that sets its own priorities based on, running the education system. So what I advised the Trails Committee was that it is certainly within their purview to write the Board of Supervisors a position, and they could certainly CC the school board. Now, Noel and Brent and Calvin are your staff support, and I don't certainly want to step on their toes by telling you what I told the Trails Committee, but I certainly think that primarily, again, your responsibility is to advise the board. But the two issues are that since the board does not direct the school board what to do within their budget, and the timeliness of the fact that both budgets are the school budget has already been proposed and the county's budget is about to be proposed, and then ultimately each of them will be approved in the next few weeks and months, that between the timeliness factor and between this governance issue of what boards, authorities, and commissions are supposed to do, I advise the Trails Committee, if they wanted to take a position, to direct that position to the Board of Supervisors, and due to the timeliness issue, to CC the school board.
Okay, thank you. Alexis.
Thank you. Yeah, Chris, I think that's a great approach, and I think that you've highlighted what we've established, I think, strongly, is that the Board of the FCDOT and FCPS have a collaborative relationship, and they have a joint interest in a program like this moving forward and succeeding, and one can't operate without the other, why I think it's very much appropriate for the TAC to ask our supervisors to look at this issue and ask them to collaborate with FCPS on ensuring that programming like this moves forward. It's absolutely not the Board of Supervisors or the TAC's role to tell the schools how to use their money, but it is our relationship with the board, and it's the board relationships with the schools to collaborate and talk about where we have mutual interests. And this, I think, is 1,000% a mutual interest for all the parties.
Copy. It makes sense. Kevin. Kevin?
Oh, I'm sorry. You hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry I didn't, you blanked out there for a second. I think Chris gave a pretty good description of the budgeting process, and echoed by Alexis. Just, maybe with a little seniority here, some historical background that may sound a little cynical, but if I remember in more contentious years between the school board and the Board of Supervisors, when the school board wasn't getting the amount of funding that they wanted, they would then be accused of, I don't know what the term's monument projects or what, but of holding back projects that they know that the community or the Board of Supervisors wanted, and not putting that in their budget so that they could get the budget that they wanted. So in that regard, if that's true at all, I just wondered if there is maybe a little more give and take in the budgeting process than is officially let on about, that maybe there is a little more influence that the board has, even though you're correct officially, here's the money, you spend it, but I just suspect that maybe they have a little more influence on specific items if they really want to.
Okay. Yes, the things were pretty contentious a while ago. They do seem to have cooled down a little bit, but yeah, tough to know what the relationship is exactly. But that's a good point, Kevin. Pete.
Oh, well, I had my hand up.
You did?
I must have. Frankly, I learned a lot tonight, but really one thing I learned that I like to, it's already been said, is that it's something we should do. Make sure whatever letter we do write is poised to the Board of Supervisors, because that's who we work for. That's who we serve at the pleasure of. But if a CC works going to the public schools, so be it. Whatever method that is appropriate, we should use. But I think we've had a really good discussion, and unless someone has an objection, I move that we do what we've been just talking about, that we send this letter to the Board of Supervisors, and if appropriate, copy in the public schools and try to get this done, because it's worthwhile. And that's my position, my 2 cents worth.
All right. There's a motion on the table to send a letter to the Board of Supervisors. Do we hear a second?
I'll second it. Braddock.
I think we'll, if I don't mind, let Alexis have the honor of
fine. Absolutely.
But thank you. But yes, plenty of seconds. I think that when we discussion on the motion, when we discussed this last month, one of my concerns was not having the opportunity to consult with FCDOT and Sally to get a chance to talk to you. We are doing that here this evening. I think this is time very well spent. I think we have some very good grounding now to reach out to the board. As I mentioned earlier, Alexis, I think the way you put the letter together, encouraging the board to consider it, is the right kind of track. I will also say I think I don't feel really comfortable with copying the school board, but I certainly don't mind encouraging the Board of Supervisors to reach out to the school board. I think it's could be a little problematic for us, the TAC, to reach out directly to the Board of Supervisors, sorry, to the FCPS, even in a CC. But I think we can make the point clear. And also, I think bringing this to their attention is also timely because we don't know yet, because nobody knows yet exactly what's the best way to proceed. And I think that we certainly can say in the letter, that this is an item of interest, can absolutely tie it into our work plan. It's not a mere coincidence that it is now in the work plan. Alexis and Jeremy working on the letter, Alexis and Kelly working on the work plan. I detect a common pattern, and so the Safe Routes to Schools appropriately has been mentioned in the work plan. And so I think that by bringing this to the attention of the Board of Supervisors and letting them know that this is an item of interest, something we'll be watching and trying to advise them on, what is the best way forward? Should there be 1, 2, 3, 5, 16, maybe not 16, coordinators, as we go forward once Sally retires? I think that it is clear, and we've talked about it here, that what we're talking about to really do this the way I think a lot of the members of the TAC would like to, is going to require more than just and all due respect to the amount of effort Sally's done to get this thing going, more effort than Sally by herself or the new Sally could do by herself. And I do think also making the point that having this be in place as the $40 million of funding, decisions are made about $40 million of sidewalk funding for getting to schools, having a coordinator or two is absolutely money very well spent to make sure that's done. And so I think that now I think that our conversations before about writing the letter, very much in support of that. And I think we have the outline of a letter that Alexis has put together. It's a very good letter. I would like to tweak it a little bit based upon some of the conversation here and have open to commissioners to make some comments either. But I do think I think it sounds like we're coming to a consensus on how to proceed with the next step. But I see, Jeremy, you've put your screen on. And so I think that means you like to speak. So please do.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, obviously I've support us moving forward here. I would be fine CCing the school board. I don't particularly have an issue with that, but respectful of your position and how we move forward. I would suggest if we are going to, I don't know if we're voting on this, we have a motion. The letter is written coming from the chairman, but if we are going to vote on this, perhaps it could come from the entire TAC.
It could. I would like to craft the letter a little bit. I'd like to add some things in, but certainly we could do that. I do not want to, and I hope folks, I don't want to write the letter here in a group. But I think that, to tell you the truth, we didn't pass this by motion last time. I don't think we strictly need to this time, but certainly we can if we want to codify that. Yes, we want the chair to write a letter to the Board of Supervisors, expressing concern about the Safe Routes to School program, bring it to their attention so that they can find a resolution here and keep the program alive. And so, if this were a shorter letter, if there were not a couple things I'd like to do, and what I'm really thinking about doing, quite honestly, is I hope things that would strengthen the letter. I do want to put a reference in there to the money that they plan to spend on sidewalks. I think that's important. I think it puts it in some perspective that while admittedly we're talking about more money than just what was in the grant, we're not talking a huge amount of money compared to the amount of money that's about to be spent on these sidewalks. But that's my preference. But I open that up for the conversation amongst the TAC members. Kevin, your hand is still up? Okay.
Yeah. Well, now I put it back up.
Okay.
One, it's a little bit of inside baseball, but I think usually it's appropriate, I thought, for the chairman to sign the letters to the Board of Supervisors, and I think the chairman would make it clear that he's writing on behalf of the TAC. Secondly, though, I strongly disagree with you, Mike, on the CC. I definitely would CC the school board and the school department. And that gives them an opportunity, if somehow this thing was missed before they hear from the Board of Supervisors, they might be able to get ahead of it and say, this has come to our attention now, and yeah, we think this is something we ought to look at. I mean, that may be naive, but I would definitely want the school board and the school department CC'd on the letter.
Okay. That's a legitimate point. I'm going to try and take advantage of the fact we still have a number of Board of Supervisors transportation aides with us, and I wonder if Shamali is one of them still. Shamali, I would wonder. I'm thinking out loud, which is dangerous, but ask Mr. Alcorn if he would mind. If Mr. Alcorn, because I think that's really the concern. Is I want to make sure that we respect the prerogatives of the Board of Supervisors, but I don't want to overthink this because it's not necessarily a huge deal. And we're not in this letter direct, we can't direct, urging immediate and sharp action. We're asking them to look at it. So me personally, I don't have a problem with copying the Fairfax County Public Schools on there as well. I think we should speak to the public school board as we do with the Board of Supervisors, and then allow communications to folks who know what's going on to spread that letter to where it needs to go, so folks can see what's going on. Shamali, do you think that's even necessary? From what you know, Mr. Alcorn, if you're here, I hate to put you on the spot, but sorry,
I am here. I don't want to speak for Supervisor Alcorn. So I would want to run this by him in terms of how he would prefer it to go. I would generally, yes, the Board of Supervisors provides the funding to the schools, but the schools decide how they're to use their money, right? So it is their prerogative to use it. I don't know, and maybe if anyone from staff is still here, has there been something like this done before in the past, where a BAC provides their feedback or guidance to the school board?
This is Brent. I'm certainly not aware of anything like this. Chris, maybe, since he has a longer tenure than I do, he may have some experience, but I've never seen it.
I'm not aware of anything in an official action such as this. I mean, the creation of Sally's position was due to some informal pressure from one of the members who was on the Trails Committee, who 10 years ago or so, there were these strange policies about a principal could say that biking is not allowed at an individual school, and that was not like a school-wide policy. So due to some of the activism of this individual on the Trails Committee, a conversation started to occur between some of the school board members, but this was informal and not formal. So no, I'm not aware of any formal action like this.
Chris, didn't you just say the TSB is sending a letter to the BOS and CCing the school board?
Similar to your discussion tonight, they had a similar discussion to authorize the chairman to draft a letter of some content that was undefined, and that their intent was to to CC the school board, but certainly I defer to your chairman and to your commission about what you feel is appropriate. It's complicated, and I'm certainly, again, to answer the question, not aware of any precedent in this area. We've advised the commissions that they cannot write the governor. their role is not to write
That
the
was
governor.
the next thought.
Because it could run opposite of official Board of Supervisors position, and that's, I'm sure the delegate could see that Chairman Chantness is concerned about that until the Board of Supervisors agrees with the Board Authority and Commission that you run the risk of having an opposing viewpoint than the official Board of Supervisors. So that's the delicacy here. But then again, as Commissioner Kevin pointed out, there's a timeliness aspect, and for if a school board member, for instance, wanted to say, I'm not familiar with their process, but in our Board of Supervisors process, we have what are called, I don't even know what they call them, but it's a consideration items. After the budget's proposed, any board member can say, you know what, I want to add this to the budget, and there's a bunch of bullet points where the board considers, deletions, additions. If the school board has a similar process, then what Commissioner Kevin pointed out, there is a timeliness aspect to communication. So,
okay, I'm actually communicating with Supervisor Alcorn just on this, and to see if he had any thoughts. In his suggestion, and I'm going to double check to make sure this is accurate as soon as I get off here, but is to have them have you send it directly to the Board of Supervisors and the school board chair, each to say what your recommendation is for this.
Okay.
And I guess actually, are you wording it as a recommendation, or are you wording it as?
We're bringing it to the board's attention. So I feel more comfortable about that as something we want to bring to your attention for you please to have a look at. I'd be a little more apprehensive if we're making a recommendation, because I think the recommendations go to the supervisor, but no, this is not a recommendation.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that sounds better.
Okay. Appreciate
Let me double check, and if anything comes up, I'll jump on and let you know.
Okay. Okay. Well, that would, if the chair of the Board Transportation Committee is aware of and is comfortable with us copying the chair of the school board, then I'm comfortable with it. But also, Shamali, well, we can also. I don't want to drag this out, but the other, I know there's a timeliness aspect, but also I think we need to be somewhat realistic and realize that this letter will not instantly cause the Fairfax County Public Schools to put a stick in the spokes of the bike, upend their budget, put this in. I think really what we're looking at here is over the course of the year, as we go into the fall, as the position goes away, and as we really develop what this coordinator needs to do, then we need to find a way to make sure that that thing that we, the royal we, everybody devises, does get funded. And so that is not developed enough right now to make this year's budget. So there will be some execution year budget juggling perhaps needs to get done. By bringing it to their attention, that's something that FCDOT, maybe the school board, the Board of Supervisors can be aware of the fact that here's something we might need to fix later on in the year. And hopefully next year's budget, whatever fix we do at the end of this year, is incorporated in next year's budget. Okay, yeah, and I think if the wording of that you support funding for the Safe Routes to School position, and briefly outlining some of the discussion that you've had on the board, here in terms of why that's a critical position. Would probably be helpful. So okay. Well, we're happy to share that with you, but also I don't want to put you on the spot and then the chairman on the spot to coordinate with us. It's our job to sort of send it to you, and hopefully we've done our homework. Absolutely. Yeah. But we do have a letter that Alexis and Jeremy have drafted, and it's a very good start. It's a very good start. has a lot of the kind of stuff you just talked about. Okay. Well, I think what we can do then, and again, I'm not sure we need a motion to do this. We didn't use one last time, but certainly as the chair, yes, I can write a letter on behalf of the TAC expressing our interest in the program, concerns about its future, bring it to the board's attention. Shamali, wait to hear your confirmation from Mr. Alcorn about if he's comfortable with us copying the chair of the school board, and then happy to put that forward. That's not exactly a resolution. Like I say, I'm not sure we need one to do this, but if folks are if the commissioners are comfortable, then that's how I propose to proceed. And what I would talk about specifically is ask specifically. We have given the letter that the proposed letter to all members of the TAC. If after this conversation, there's some particular things you'd like to take out of the letter, add to the letter, make sure you can emphasize and things like that, take a couple days, get that to me, and then I will put the letter together. And actually, Alexis, what I propose to do is share it with you and Jeremy as we before we go forward. I wouldn't propose to send it back to the TAC. I think we had enough conversation about it. That's why I ask if you got any particular things you need to, make sure not get lost in the translation. Please to let me know. But Alexis and Jeremy, happy to share that with you so you can see where we're going. If there's any last pieces that you'd like us to make sure are right.
I'm fine with the wordsmithing aspect of things, but I am more concerned about the timeliness constraint that we're under, the calendar constraint that we're under. The budget hearing for FCPS is on the 24th.
Okay.
So that's less than a week away. So it's just, we're on a time crunch.
Gotcha. Absolutely. Today is the 18th. I think I'm trying to look at a calendar here. Oh, here we go. The 24th is Monday. So we probably ought to get the letter out by Friday, so that it's available a little bit before the hearing on the 24th. So, okay. So with that, then, if you can get comments to me, and Alexis, if there's some things you'd like to adjust in the letter now based upon this conversation, please do. Get any comments to me by close of business, like 6, 7 o'clock tomorrow. So get any comments by Wednesday evening, and then I'll work on the letter tomorrow night and send it out, and then we can get it sent Thursday or Friday. Does that sound okay?
Mike, did any other supervisors, aides want to weigh in at all?
Didn't ask them specifically. You just have. Do any comments there from anyone? And Shamal, I appreciate your comments there very much.
This is Sally from Braddock. I can see how it would make sense to have the school board CC'd for their awareness. So obviously Shamali is checking into that, but I think it makes sense to do that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And if for some reason Mr. Alcorn is not comfortable with that, not to presume any outcomes, he's certainly aware of it, and there are ways to bring this to the school board's attention as well in an appropriate fashion. Clara.
Thank you. I just have a question because I thought during the course of the discussion, and please correct me if I misheard this, was a letter proposed to also be sent to the school board?
Not a separate letter. What we're discussing is whether to CC the school board, or actually, I think right now, most likely, if we CC somebody, would be the president of the school board. And that's what Shamali is conferring with Mr. Alcorn on. But no, we, the TAC, would not send a separate letter to the school board.
Because, I mean, and this has been a long discussion, and I'm trying to recall, but I thought I heard that there was some letter that was proposed to be going to the school board. They're the ones who control their money. So if a letter's going to the Board of Supervisors asking them for their support on Safe Route to Schools, and I know my boss supports that, and the school board is receiving money from the Board of Supervisors, which is just about half or more of our budget to begin with. They control how they use that money. So is there a reason why you're not asking the school board to please prioritize Safe Route to Schools and to allocate the money that they controlled for this?
Yes. I see, Shamali, you've got your hand up. I'll very briefly. The TAC advises the Board of Supervisors. So we want to be very respectful of that relationship to the Board of Supervisors, and not sort of get out of our lanes. But we certainly understand and would like to make the school board aware of what's going on. That's the consultation we've done with Shamali, and Shamali has done with Mr. Alcorn. Shamali, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, and I think you laid that out very well, Mike. Since the TAC is a Board of Supervisors commission, we can't you can't direct necessarily a school board to do anything. And so, and as you pointed out, even making the recommendation may be a little strong, but strongly supporting the position would be, I think, entirely appropriate. Supervisor Alcorn has said that if, go ahead and send it to the chairman of the Board of Supervisors and the chair, Stella Pekarsky of the school board. Just double, in terms of your final language, if you would double check that through FCDOT to make sure there's not any, major issue with I know you're still kind of working through some of the language of the letter that you'll be sending to. That would be it.
Yes, we're definitely, what we're talking about is bringing something to their attention, not immediately recommending action.
No, yeah. I understand I do understand the structure and who advises whom and all of that. But it seems to me if the goal is to try to get the school board to allocate money for this, then what other alternatives are there to convince them that they need to do that? Now, I get in trouble for thinking sometimes, but it just seems illogical to me. It's like, I guess what you're looking for here is edification that the school board does. I mean, that the Board of Supervisors does support Safe Route to Schools. And I don't speak for any member of the board, but I happen to know that my boss does support this. So, but once that money is transferred to the school, the Board of Supervisors does not control how it's spent. So could maybe some thought be given to how can we, dovetail the school board to get them on the same page?
Maybe I haven't communicated that well. I did say that Supervisor Alcorn recommended that the school board chairperson also be given the letter. So that would be Stella Pekarsky, who chairs the school board. So a letter will also go directly to the school board as well as to the Board of Supervisors.
I understand that, but he's just one person and they have a whole board. Just something I'm trying to figure out how to be able to achieve the goal. And I don't know if there's maybe some other ways that could be accomplished.
Sir, I would actually suggest that for the goal of getting additional funding, I think we have to have a clear sense of what the program looks like. And I think that's still in work. It will raise the issue of sort of how we on the Board of Supervisors side, so to speak, encourage the school board sometimes to do things that we would like to see them do that they might be reluctant to do. Back to Kevin's point about the tension a few years ago, those conversations probably would have gone nowhere. Today, hopefully, there's a bit more collegiality. We will see, we will see. But for right now, what I think what we're doing is bring it to folks' attention in time before the budget deliberation, so at least they're aware of it. And then I think it's certainly something we're going to keep an eye on as we go forward and look for opportunities to try and encourage them to do this. And as I say that, this is not the only issue that transportation-related issue that we might want to raise to the school board at some point. It might not even be the most important when it's all said and done. So this issue will come up again, but we know that as long as we stay tucked in close to the Board of Supervisors, then and complement or adjunct or just get behind what they're doing, then I think we'll be in good shape.
Thank you.
Okay. And Shamali, again, appreciate your efforts there, and thanks for reaching out to Mr. Alcorn. Look forward to hearing from you if there's any clarifications, any changes to what you've described here. You've heard the timeline, so by tomorrow evening, we'll have a draft letter together and try and get it sent Thursday or Friday. Definitely by Friday.
Mike, maybe just to answer quickly, if it hasn't been declared, I think Shamali one already elevated this from a CC to the board to a co-letter to the Jeff McKay and the chairman of the school board. So we've elevated that there. That's one step further. And my understanding would be just like any communication to you from outside, any communication from us to the school board chairman would immediately be shared with the rest of the school board, would it not?
Would expect.
So I don't know if that would maybe address this Carrie's concern, Clara's concerns or not, but I just wanted to put that out there.
But actually, I'm not sure we have necessarily come to the point that we send a joint letter to the chair of the Board of Supervisors and the chair of the school board. The way I heard Shamali describe it, and open to different ways of doing it, again, I think as long as Mr. Alcorn is comfortable. We've always sent things to the board. We could send it to the chair of the Board of Supervisors. I like the idea, I will admit, of sending it to the board, to all members of the board, so they all get it. But no, my expectation was that we would CC the chair of the Fairfax County Public Schools.
That was mine as well, but I thought Shamali, so I'll let her speak to that. I thought she was elevating it to sending it to directly to both, so I'll let her answer that.
Okay.
So I'm just, he directly said, have them send it to the Board of Supervisors and the school board, the chairs of each, is how he worded it. And I will, if he's still up, I will.
I think it makes sense
and confirm that.
I interpret that as a CC meets that goal. I think that makes sense coming from a Board of Supervisor advisory commission, that we send it, and then whether it's a CC to the chair or to the school board, whatever, that makes sense. But I think just from a kind of a precedent in how we move forward on these type of issues, I would be comfortable with a CC.
I certainly would.
I would as well, but if somebody's elevating it, I'm not going to get in the way of it, but I would, my vote would be for the CC.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay. There might be times we want to go.
CC, in terms of elevating, if we really, it certainly doesn't hurt then to add the other school board members, because I would not say that just because you send it to the chair that automatically means it goes to the other school board members. So if we want to get that out, it doesn't hurt to add them, but.
True. and it is getting a little late for this, and we're speculating a bit, and certainly, Shamali, do not want you to keep bugging Mr. Alcorn about this right now. But I think certainly a CC, and something we can put in the letter is point to the fact that this is an issue in the budget deliberations that'll take place on January 24th. So we want to bring it to your attention now because this is an issue on Monday, and so that will help spread the information, I think.
So to close it out, I think we can, Mike. You've got your deadline. If anybody else has a comment by tomorrow night, if not anything after that, I think just make a command decision, but meet your timeline and get it out. And we're
Absolutely. We'll have to do that. I still see Claire and Shamali's hands up. Is that because the hands were not taken down, or more stuff to raise?
And not taken down. Sorry.
No problem. Just checking. Okay. All right. Well, Claire, same thing. I think we're comfortable with where we're at for now. Okay. With that, I think we, if I could, I know Commissioner Sitnik made a motion. Given the conversation, Pete, would you feel comfortable withdrawing your motion, and we'll proceed as we've discussed?
I have no problem proceeding as long as we get a letter out, and I don't care who gets CC'd as long as the grain decision is after consultation with all appropriate people.
Copy. We'll get a revised version together tomorrow.
There you go. So it's withdrawn.
Thank you. Okay. With that, I think we're through this part of the agenda. We're now into the public comment period, and we have even Board of Supervisors transportation aides are members of the public, so they're welcome to speak in the public comment section, although we've had plenty of opportunities beforehand. So if there's any person who'd like to make a comment in the public comment period, you're welcome to. Just put your camera on, speak up. Okay, hearing none. We now move on to other business and announcements. If we could look just very briefly at the agenda for the February meeting, we are going to be talking about the parking study at our next meeting. From I understand, there's some still some work going on. I haven't heard the latest about who's actually going to be on the parking study. Roger, we suggested you from the TAC. Also, Jeremy, I know you had expressed some interest as well too. And my understanding, I thought we could they put as many people on there as they want. It sounds like perhaps not. So I'm just going to ask quickly, Roger and Jeremy, have either of you been reached out to be a member of the parking study?
I did get a note from Rachel.
I'll defer to Roger on that. I don't need to.
Yeah, I did. I had sent her an email, and she had sent me a response, and it's in my inbox someplace. It's been a month or so ago, and she said, more or less welcoming me. I think what I'll do is I'll send her another email and ask her what the status of this is, and see where they're going between now and our next meeting.
Well, they've actually asked to come speak to us. Go ahead, Jeremy. Sorry.
I think there's been one meeting already.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Okay. Yeah, so we should see if we can get on the invite list then. But I know they've asked to come speak with us, and they're on the agenda for next month's meeting. We'll probably also do is now that we have proceeded with the 2022 work plan, still open for comments, but I know we've talked about it quite a bit. What I'm going to start doing is making arrangements to get the work plan on the Board of Supervisors agenda. And so not sure when there'll be an opportunity to do that, but I'm sure it won't be, I'll say sure, I'm pretty sure it won't be before the February meeting. And so we'll have a chance to look at the latest version of the work plan, and hopefully we can discuss when the work plan will be presented. So that would be something we would discuss in February. Okay. All right, and Kevin, I have to apologize. We talked about last month. I did not put on the possible topics a visit to the Dallas airport. That was my mistake. That should be on here as well too. When you try and visit the airport at some point.
And even though I was negligent in giving you my written comments, are the topics I concerned with, do they still fit within the work plan? Dulles Airport, Dulles Rail, and underserved areas?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And before I just make one comment on that, Chris, if you can stay on for a brief after chat, and maybe Frank Anderson, if you're interested on that VRE trail project, just a quick thing to bring to you, but if you can stay behind. But Mike, to finish my what I'd mentioned earlier about my conversation with Carla, she said that under her purview, they didn't have any as regard as transportation from underserved areas to job opportunities. She didn't really have anything specific to add to come to the TAC on, but she said within FCDOT, there was an equity group or committee. So I don't know whether Brent or Calvin or any of those people want to comment on that. But if that were the case, then maybe that's who we would want to come before the TAC and brief us on how well we're doing with providing transportation from these areas to job opportunities in other areas of the county.
One of the things we can consider is maybe putting it into a wider aperture if there's some economic development pieces or something like that as well. It doesn't sound like from your initial outreach, Kevin, that there's like one-stop shop, just have one person come talk to us. Sounds like we might need to get 2 or 3 people together or weave a bit of a story together to really see what we need to see. That's what it's sounding like.
Well, I don't want to put Brent on the spot, but are you aware of any group within the FCDOT that's specifically looking at this issue of, bus or some kind of transportation from our lesser income parts of the county to where job opportunities would exist in others?
Well, I mean, within the Transit Services Division, the connector folks, I mean, they are, of course, doing route planning all the time, trying to match up populations, particularly populations of need with, connectivity to the larger transportation network, including Metro Rail, including commuter bus services, but also just, cross county. And they're always refining those routes and making tweaks to them. That would be my suggestion, is getting somebody like Michael Felshaw here to talk, about those kinds of efforts. They're sort of planning efforts. In fact, they're going to be unveiling a bunch of new routes in relation to the Silver Line Phase 2 extension. And he's done a lot of analysis and shown us a lot of how they've done the route planning for that in addressing some of the very things you just talked about. So.
Sounds like a plan, but Mike, you also had a good point in there, in that we're all, in the economic data that we see now, all these employers that can't find staff, and I wonder if hearing from the economic office, we've had them in before, if they want to add anything to that point, either at the same meeting or having them in ahead of time. Maybe inviting them in at the same time might be beneficial for everybody, because it's not to challenge anybody that they're not doing it. It's to inform us how they're meeting that one Fairfax goal.
Okay. Well, certainly I think, Brent, I think it's a good idea to maybe key off Michael Felshaw. I'm sure he's given this some thought, sort of the one Fairfax aspects of this. There's more to the story than that, but to get his views there. And yeah, I think we certainly can make the EDA folks aware of the conversation, invite them to come, or yes, reach out afterwards. So, Kevin, do you feel comfortable reaching out to Michael Felshaw then, having him be the anchor for the conversation, at least to start?
Sure. Calvin sends me his contact. I'll reach out to him.
Perfect. Okay, well, I don't see that. Okay, Calvin's with us, so he's always over our shoulder. I'm sure he can do that, right, Calvin?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
And I'll tell him that it was Brent that threw him under the bus if he doesn't want to come. But
thanks.
Well, by the time there's a TAC commissioner talking to him, they're usually happy to come talk, and we always appreciate that. I'm joking, but no, thank you. Okay, so next month's meeting will be the parking study, and so yes, we'll see where they stand on the meetings and things like that. And Roger, yeah, appreciate you reaching out to Rachel, seeing if there's if maybe the bus, so to speak, is. Okay, so that's the February meeting. I think we'll leave it at that for planning for right now, and again also the work plan as well. Okay. My report. The only thing I'll just mention is there was another conversation with the Tyson's Transportation Management Association. They had a meeting just last week, continuing to talk about telework and things like that, post-pandemic environment. And in fact, Chris, I think you were, no, I'm sorry, I don't think you were part of that one. That was, I mixed you up with another person in the meeting there. But that is proceeding. Nothing significant to raise here with the commissioners, but I'm staying involved in that. And so what I would like to do now is we're in the home stretch here, commissioners updates, and then we can be just about ready to go. So let me go through the list in the order that we went through. Here we go. For our roll call to begin with. So let's start with Linda Sperling. Any updates? Probably has to take care of the kids, put them to sleep like a normal human being. Okay, like a normal mom. Kevin, anything more, sir?
no, nothing, Calvin. Just keep it open. So for an after chat, if you can, please, with Chris and Frank. Okay. Kelly, I don't believe you've been able to join us this evening. Just checking. Okay. Roger, any last comments?
Just a thanks to Clara for spending a long evening with us and your contribution. It's always good to hear them.
You're here.
Roger.
Pete Sidnick, anything from you, sir?
Nothing except I'm going to piggyback on Roger and just thank all the attendees tonight. It was great to have that sort of knowledge power behind the discussion. So thank you very much, and come back anytime.
Absolutely, absolutely. Alexis, anything more, ma'am?
I'll echo the thanks to staff and to Sally Smallwood for not only coming tonight, but for all her work with Safe Routes to School, and mention that at the state level, there is a trails budget of around $230 million on the line going through the General Assembly that will trickle down to Fairfax, I'm sure, if it gets passed. So just wanted to make commissioners aware of that if they, outside of the TAC, want to take a look at that.
Okay. Just thinking, Alexis, maybe that's worth referencing in the letter. That there's a lot of real money about to be spent here, and a coordinator would really help make sure that money is spent effectively.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay. Jeremy, Anything from you, sir?
Just thanks to staff.
Okay. Eric?
No, other than thanks to staff for joining us.
Appreciate it. David Skiles? We'll understand again. Kevin, I noticed this. I will just say before passing on to Mary Pauline Jones, because once you pass on to Mary Pauline Jones, we're pretty much out of here. But thank you very much to all the transportation aides, obviously county staff as well. I think it was a very productive conversation. Shamali was very fortuitous. You were here with us this evening, just the way we planned. But no, it was great having you with us. Welcome to come back anytime. We'll be back in touch. Maybe try and do this more regularly, but at least for tonight, we captured some magic in a bottle and appreciate the conversation. So with that, I'll pass it on to Mary Pauline Jones, our vice chair, for any comments and maybe a motion that she might want to make. I don't know.
I will give my own thank you as well. Peyton, I know, had to jump off the phone for her own family issues as well, but I want to thank her. And now I will do that standard motion to adjourn.
There's a motion on the floor to adjourn. Is it seconded?
Oh, yes.
Seconded by Commissioner Sitnik. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, say nay. We are adjourned at 10:04 p.m. Keep the line open for the conversation with Kevin, transportation aides as well. If you any last follow-up questions, please. I'll hang out for a minute here, and then I too will disappear. But thank you so much, and good evening.
All right.
Cheers, thank you.
Night.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Bye.